my name's Jane Hayes Greenwood. I'm the director of Block 336, which is an artist-run project space and studio provider based in Brixton, South London. And we're absolutely delighted to be commissioning the brilliant British painter Dale Lewis to make new work that will be exhibited at Block 336. So Dale and I will be talking today about the work he's making for the exhibition. And this is part of the series of conversations Edel Assanti, who represent Dale, have been running throughout the pandemic. Could we start by talking a little bit about the Royal Vauxhall Tavern painting?
To make this painting, I really had to kind of go back to photographs that I had in my phone, which I haven't done for quite a few years, and make some drawings from that and kind of, go a lot deeper back into memory to kind of visualize this painting. And I think even though, like, when you see the work finished, it is a crowd of people. It's people outside the front of the venue, smoking cigarettes and chatting. But I think there's a few figures in there you can kind of pick out that look very isolated, even though they're part of a bigger group. So I think, one thing, we have all been on our own this year, but we can also find ourselves like quite alone and isolated in times where we feel like we should be part of something bigger or part of a crowd.
To move into the more recent past, I wondered if you could talk about the painting that you're loosely titling The Garden of England, which comes out of an experience that you had between lockdowns.
I think it was that time, where it was this big question of whether like a Scotch egg is a substantial meal. It was kind of like, that's the time I remember it being. So there was just this very brief window of when we, could go out. So the painting is a kind of afternoon brunch in this basement in Soho. So you might have, 150 people packed into this tiny, kind of cellar. You had these drag queens and, we had this bottomless brunch and this very unsubstantial like meal to go with it. It was just that one afternoon for a few hours. It kind of brought that feeling back where everybody just threw like caution to the wind and everything was forgotten about for a few hours. But then the consequence of that was the lockdown that we're still in now.
With the Garden of England, were you looking at any other artists? Are there any other works that are informing that piece?
I mean, the main image that I really wanted to concentrate on was there's this image of a dancer by Muybridge from the photographic series, and I really wanted to use that because one thing I always think about paintings is that sometimes they're very static, like they don't have any movement and they certainly don't have any sound. So I thought the most significant thing I remembered from that drag brunch was this drag queen in like 10-inch heels, like sprinting towards the stage, and then she kind of launched herself onto the stage and did this incredible cartwheel. And there was this big gasp, like intake of breath from everybody, thinking, she's about to snap her neck or something or fall off the stage. But she managed to do this cartwheel and land it. And then immediately I started thinking about Muybridge and the way I was going to paint that movement. So I did lots of studies of cartwheels, just pencil drawings. And then I made a colour version. Then I thought about doing the painting.
I wanted to talk about the Greggs painting in terms of you taking this different approach, because I think that's a really good example of this. So could you talk about the location in that painting and also tell us about the process, because I believe that you made that pretty directly.
So I've been doing this kind of route around Wanstead, just near where I live in Leytonstone. So I found this like Greggs bakery in this petrol station. So, I kind of designed my walks or what I wanted to do in the day, depending on where I was going to go and find, some food or a snack. So there's this one route that I did to Greggs, and then I kind of cut through unknowingly at the time, but now I'm quite aware of it, that there's this gay cruising area. So I thought, this is interesting to go and buy your sausage rolls and then come back and you see all these guys up to things. So I think, because we're in this pandemic and then the laws, it's, it's illegal for us to have sex with somebody that we don't live with. And I think it's brought back this kind of underground thing of cottaging and, these illicit meets, which I think is very exciting. So I didn't make a drawing, I didn't plan anything, I just kind of remembered what I saw and put that straight down. And I think that kind of locked in that freshness with the work.
And that then follows on to the work Flip Flop, which is also partly, I think, referencing Muybridge, but focusing on a female figure that has similarities to the Hindu goddess of destruction, Kali, which I know you weren't aware of until after you'd made the painting.
It was a few weeks ago. It was really, really cold. It wasn't when it just recently snowed, but it was the time before. So it was, I think, like a Sunday morning, and I had an intention of what I was going to do that day in the studio. And then on the way down the River Lee on the canal, I passed by this girl who was in like this, you know, dirty old bra and her underwear, and she had headphones on, and she had her iPhone tucked into her pants and these wellies, and it was snowing. And yeah, like you say, she was just chopping wood next to her boat along the canal. And it was just this really remarkable thing to see, because obviously everything is very ordinary, boring, mundane, and just seeing the same things every day, the same people every day. And I just thought it was just so out of place and brilliant. And then whatever intention I had of doing that day, it's just got completely wiped off the, you know, out of my mind. And I came straight in, I drew her out in paint straight on the canvas.
The Bethnal Green painting is more in keeping with your previous process of transcribing historical works and then using their composition and maybe even some other elements in the piece as sort of jumping off points. And I think you said that this painting is made in relation to The Dance of Death by Holbein the Younger. And one of the things that I really identified with in this painting is the paranoia that you seem to have captured in the face of this figure who's casually walking down the street, carrying his beers while smoking and looking anxiously over his shoulder as this figure of death sort of stares him in the face and tries to drag him out of the land of the living.
There was this guy, it was around Bethnal Green, I just saw him walking past with his dog, and then I thought, oh, I need to do something like about him and this dog. I thought it was just really nice. I've seen a lot of, you know, solitary people walking around, so it just seemed like a really obvious thing to do. I found this Hans Holbein the Younger woodcut that's in the British Museum, and as soon as I saw that, I knew that was the work to use to help, you know, make the painting. So if you see that, and they're almost a direct copy, but going back to what you said, like, I think looking over your shoulder and having this sense of like foreboding and, you know, being bombarded with death every day through media, you know, for the last year, all we've heard about is, you know, misery and death. And like, it's just like that thing that's like our shadow on us, and you know, we think about our own mortality.
We have been bombarded by horrendous figures on the news day in, day out, and if you're an anxious person, that is playing into your anxieties like nothing else. So I try and be as forgiving as I possibly can, you know, even when it seems like it's a little bit over the top, the reaction, but of course you just don't know what's going on for people. Well, thank you so much. Lovely chatting to you.
Cool. Thanks so much, Jane.
Thanks, Dale.
See you.